Hello everyone, and welcome to the Cioffi Brothers podcast. I'm Ken.
I'm Alex.
And today we're going to be reviewing action figures. I'm not going to go into all the specifics of each one that we have, because we'll cover that as we go through it, and it's a lot to cover.
I love action figures.
Yes, absolutely. Who doesn't love action figures?
I am a collector.
Yeah. So actually we're going to start with Alex today, and he's going to be reviewing... Actually, why don't you just tell us what you're going to be reviewing?
I am reviewing some of my favorite figures in my collection right now. Metalgarurumon and Wargreymon from the series Digimon. Specifically the very first season, Digimon Adventure, which came out in 1999. True 90s status right now. 90s kid status.
Man, it was the end of the decade. Come on.
Still.
Stretching it. Anyway.
These are some of my favorite figures, and I'll jump right into the pros with them.
Sure.
First and foremost, with any figure that you're looking at, the mold is fantastic. I love these molds.
That's very important, yeah.
They truly represent how the characters just looked to me. Just BA and amazing, just awesome. I can go on and on about the molds in and of itself, but they are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the show myself, and I wasn't as invested as you were, but I do remember it being a fun show. And these are some nice looking figures. Even if you aren't into the show, you can see that these are some nice looking figures.
Just looking at them, they're from the
lots of detail.
Lots of detail. They're from the D Arts line for the Wargreymon and the SH Fig Arts line for the Metalgarurumon, which were later merged into one line, which is now just the SH Fig Arts. They did away with the D Arts line, but that's a different story. I think they are just awesome representations of not only what you see in the shows, but what you see in all the character art that was originally released for the characters themselves.
Now, are these imports?
Yes. Unfortunately, well, they believe it or not, this one was an import. This one was not.
Okay.
Technically, I did buy it at a local figure shop, but they imported everything here because Bandai is a Japanese company. Mm-hmm. They do everything overseas.
Well, luckily, it's different than say, like, I remember back in the day, Power Rangers. Bandai made the Power Rangers figures.
Just Saiyan in Japan.
Yeah. Super Saiyan, right?
Super Saiyan's Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, all right. Whatever.
You're gonna get a lot of people pissed off if you mess it up. You can't mess it up.
Sorry. Anyway, okay, continue.
So next thing goes with the mold. The paint job is amazing on it.
Yeah.
You don't see any. I don't see any flaws. Maybe I just got lucky with my figures, but there's no real flaws. Everything looks great. I love the metallic finish of them. Mm-hmm. I think it makes them look really nice, really sharp, and captures just a little bit of the darker tone that Digimon took as opposed to the other anime of its time, like Pokemon and those monster animes that all came out of the Pokemon era.
Sure.
I think it really captures their look and their feel, and the paint job just looks amazing. My Metalgarurumon is the original color scheme. They did do a re-release of him with a more light color palette, but I have the original color scheme, which was a secondary release. My Wargreymon is also the original color scheme. There is a Wargreymon out there with the anime-inspired colors from the movie. I have just the regular. This is the second release of the D Arts Wargreymon. It's a whole convoluted thing. First run sold out, so I got the second run finally. It took me long enough, but yeah, great paint job. And actually, one of the things that I love is on the back of Wargreymon's back, his shield and the Crest of Courage insignia.
Yep.
Just looks amazingly detailed, and it's just awesome, and I love it. Very true to the show, accurate. Next thing is the amazing points of articulation. I mean,
that's always good. Well, you run a fine line sometimes with points of articulation. You have too few, and what you have is basically a small maquette. You have too many, and what you get is you get a floppy figure.
yes.
So it's tough, but it looks like they've struck a good balance here.
They did. They really did. Everything, you get a ton of points. You have double point, double knee joints, double elbow joints, so they give you full range. Everything is just very nicely put together. With Metalgarurumon being that he is a dog canine type figure, sometimes it's hard to get a good articulation out of that, but they really hit it out of the ballpark with ball jointed almost everywhere, and even his 3 little claws are on
a hinge
joint, which is really cool. Really like it. His little missile launchers are actually also on a hinge joint, and everything is just fully articulated, even in his little tiny tail.
I will say they did a very good job of hiding a lot of the joints.
Yeah,
it's a very clean
his mouth
looking figure.
His mouth opens, which I think I just think it's great. I really do love these figures, and I've been slowly collecting them in my spare time. My next pro goes along with my first pro with their great molds. They're so very detailed that, like I said, very show accurate, but also very artwork accurate.
Sure.
If you take a look at some of the artwork and the show, there is some differences between the two, but I think these strike a very good balance as to what I remember seeing as a child and some of the newer artwork for the show, for the characters.
Sure.
And finally, I just like that these are available. These are great characters, and they finally have a action figure that does them justice.
Yeah.
This is, growing up, all I wanted was awesome figures to play with.
These characters.
And I remember having my Warp Digivolving
Wargreymon.
And I loved that figure at the time, but now that I'm older, obviously those are hard to find, and I want a nicer figure. And these are it. These are amazing figures. They display well, and they just look great, and I love them. I could talk all day about them, but I just love these figures to death.
Great. Very cool. So, obviously, no figure is perfect. So, what would you say your cons might be for this?
Well, like I said, I do love these figures, but I do have to say, with my Metalgarurumon, this may be localized to mine. Some of his joints are a little looser, particularly his hip joints. Sometimes I can't get him into like a nice display, but I think that has more to do with just me being finicky than anything else. He really is a great character, but yes, his jaw joint is a little loose. His waist joint's a little looser than I'd like.
Sure, but you want them to be, somewhat stiff, so that if you want to position them in a certain position, they stay that way. You don't have to worry about them falling over.
Yeah, and you don't want them to. God knows how many times I've come home and all of a sudden one figure falls, and it's like a domino effect, and it's just all of them are off the shelf and they're all on the ground. It's broken, stuff like that. I've had that happen.
Or you come home and just find a figure on the floor, and you're like, "How'd you get down here?"
Yeah, and I've had that happen many a times. With these two figures in particularly, not that many accessories. Some of if you have ever dived into any of the SH Fig Arts or the D Arts line, you'll know some of the figures actually do have a fair amount of accessories that come with them. Especially if you use someone like the Mega Man ones that I have.
What would you expect, let's say, for these figures specifically? Like alternate hands or alternate...
That's the problem. There's really... The one that has the least is definitely the Wargreymon. It only has one, ball of fire that it comes with.
Okay.
I would have liked to see... I don't know, maybe something... with his other moves, maybe his tornado, his Dragon Force tornado attack, maybe something like that. Really anything. I don't even care. I've had figures that, especially like the Revoltech Evangelions, that just have random accessories, random weapons, random things, and it didn't. So you don't have to be stuck to just show accurate positions. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
The Metalgarurumon does have a fair amount of accessories. He has different accessories for his special attacks and different wing accessories that you can put on for a motion effect. But really, the Wargreymon, I'm a little disappointed that it doesn't have really anything. And then the final con, which goes with that, is no stand.
Yeah.
I'm really upset that there's no stand for either of them.
Yeah, I would say, given how nice these figures look, it seems kind of a shame that there isn't something just to like stand. I mean, especially because in the anime, I mean, they always had like something like spinning around underneath them or something.
And
they could have done something that goes along with the characters, like when they digivolve, or like you said, some sort of effect piece, or like you said, some kind of like clear, floating type stand, to emphasize the flight.
Yeah.
ability.
What's discerning is the fact that the other two figures that I have in the same line have stands.
Okay.
So that's why I'm a little. And Metalgarurumon actually comes with a piece that you attach to him that attaches to a stand.
Okay.
So he has the pieces for a stand, but he doesn't have a stand.
Are they sold separately, or?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just like, if you have other figures in the line and you have a stand
That you'd like to use,
then
then
you can use that. I don't really use. I do have the stands and I use them, but I don't use them to their full effect. I could probably use them on Metalgarurumon, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
I want a separate stand for my separate figures. But
now, I don't think I have to ask, but what would your grades be for these figures?
These definitely get an A.
Yeah.
It's definitely a figure if you are into the Digimon anime. Well, if you're a fan of the Digimon anime, you probably already have these figures. I don't know why I'm even suggesting it. But if you're even a fan of just nice figures that display well, these are definitely great figures.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. So far, Bandai has done phenomenal things with their D-Arts and SH Fig Arts line that just can't be beat.
Great. Very cool.
So now on to
sure.
your figures, which I also love these figures, by the way.
I can take a
Remember
good
correctly, I have gifted you a few of these figures.
Yeah, couple few, if not all of them.
If not all of them.
So, right today, what we're going to look at is a couple of the different Blackest Night figures, some of the different con exclusives. Now we're focusing on the white and black lanterns today, because that's what I have. And the reasons why I don't have the others is something we'll kind of talk about a little later on. But we'll start out with the pros. I mean, the first pro is obviously kind of the faithfulness to the comics. The ones that when these were kind of distributed, that were a part of the comics, I think was just the White Lantern Hal and then the White Lantern Sinestro. And the two figures are they're just beautiful, really great looking figures. They're obviously very recognizable as the characters that they are.
They're very well made figures.
They're great, yeah. So next point here is the paint job. The paint job, something that you kind of talked about on your figures, is it's a beautiful paint job. It's got this metallic sheen to it. There aren't errors on it or anything, and they just look so sharp. When we're looking at these white lanterns here specifically.
Which, if you're a fan of the comics, like this, it's the reason why I love these figures too, even though they're not even mine. I love these figures because if you look at the comics, I feel like they stepped out of the comics. The art in the comics really shows that shiny metallic finish.
It does, yeah. That's a really good point.
It just adds that
for these figures specifically. The sheen and the metallic finish is something that the artists really tried to capture during that run, and the fact they capture it so beautifully on figures. I don't remember if he was the artist at that time.
He did most of the Blackest Night. He did most of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern run.
Right. I just know there was a lot of artists that kind of floated in and out there. So just beautiful paint job. And beyond that, just it fits very nicely within the Blackest Night or the DC Direct Green Lantern lines. These figures, they're the same scale. Some of them even borrow certain mold parts from that line, so they fit. They look a part of, they look like if you collect that line, which I happen to, they look like they're a part of that collection, and they fit in very nicely with everything.
Which can be seen here.
Yes,
You have the Green Lantern. Green Lantern from that line.
Which I will get to actually kind of in a minute in terms of the cons, but you'll see that they, we have the Green Lantern figure here, and they actually reuse this Hal Jordan mold quite a lot, which I don't have a problem with, because it's kind of cool to get different variations on the same character.
It's a good mold.
It is a good mold. Yeah, they have this version, which is just the regular Green Lantern one. They have this White Lantern version. I have the Power Glow version of Green Lantern, which is just all the clear green plastic, the translucent plastic. And then I have which was part of a 4-pack, which has him transitioning between the blue and the Green Lantern, which I just love that figure, because it is so cool, and probably because that's going to be the closest I'm going to get to a Blue Lantern Hal Jordan figure for a very long time.
It was such a pivotal part in the comics.
It
it was just such a cool fit. It's a very cool figure.
It is a very cool figure, and I think beyond that, just as a part of that 4-pack, and we're kind of
we'll get to that one
getting into something else. Yeah, it was just a very cool 4-pack of unique figures from the Blackest Night line. So I'll again, kind of going into with pros, there's cons. One thing I would say that I did have as kind of a con is that the White Lantern Hal Jordan doesn't use the same mold as some of the other Comic-Con figure exclusives. You can't really tell from the packaging here, but this Black Lantern Hal Jordan actually does use the exact same mold as those exclusives. It's the same as the red, the orange, and the yellow, whereas the blue and the green used a different Hal Jordan mold than what we're seeing here. Yeah. So it's just if you had just the Comic-Con figures, the Comic-Con exclusive figures, what you would end up seeing is one Hal Jordan that doesn't mesh with the rest. I personally kind of don't have a huge issue with it, but I think for the die-hard collectors, it would seem kind of incongruous. Now,
all of these are con exclusives.
They are all con exclusives. Yeah, with limited runs. These two guys have a 1500 limited run, and this one here has a 3000 limited run.
Okay.
My next two cons, I'm going to kind of roll into one, is the price point and the availability. They're very hard to come by, and if you can come by them, it's going to cost you a pretty penny, because they are Comic-Con exclusives, and as a result, that drives the price up, and again is why there's no line, because those ones are even more exclusive. I think if you were just looking to get
just one of them, I've looked online for
they're almost I think between $300 and $500, depending on which one you want. The one that's the lowest cost, I think, is the Green Lantern one, and even that's starting to hover between the $100 and $200 range.
Just amounts for.
It's a lot of money. I mean, and if you had all the money in the world, sure, you'd pay it, but I don't. So, in general, they're just a bunch of beautiful figures. I mean, we were trying to figure out earlier if Sinestro here was if they reused the mold or if this was a fresh sculpt. I want to say that I think they actually did reuse the mold for Sinestro's head. There was a Hal Jordan Sinestro 2-pack from a few years back. I think it came packaged with one of the Secret Origin trade paperbacks. But either way, despite the fact that they reused the mold, the fact that we got a White Lantern Sinestro figure
that's just cool.
It is just cool because of the fact that all the other figures in the line really focused just on Hal. They focused on Hal and his different variations within the color spectrum. The fact that we got a special Sinestro one. I mean, we have if you were to have collecting all of them, you have a Sinestro core version of Sinestro, which is the yellow.
Which he's not. He's not a part of the Blackest Night.
He's not a part of the Blackest Night.
He's part of the DC Direct line.
He's the DC Direct line, right?
So it was right before Blackest Night.
It was.
that
they released it.
And he's not an easy figure to track down.
He certainly isn't. And then there's you can have the Green Lantern Sinestro as part of that 2-pack, which is also kind of hard to come by nowadays.
Is it?
And then there's right after the Blackest Night, they released a Sinestro figure that was in alignment with his appearance. I think kind of after that New 52 when he got when
he was back to being a Green
Lantern. So it was. It's interesting. So it's nice that we have such a well-rounded representation of Sinestro, because essentially he is the Joker to Hal Jordan's Batman. He's his arch nemesis, and
he's a good character.
He's a great character.
Jeff Johns wrote him very well, and to have a nice figure of him, I love Sinestro. I think he's a great character.
Yeah,
I love seeing him in any work. As of late, I think he's really good.
Absolutely. And then we do have our my own private White Lantern ring here.
Because they all come with White Lantern
and they
rings.
do, well, yeah, except for the Black Lantern. They each come with their respective Core's rings, which is, again, a nice little touch. They each have bases associated with them. Now, I'm not normally I don't take my action figures out of the package type of guy, but when it comes to these figures, and given how much that they're going for and their rarity, it is one of the times that I do break that rule.
I'll admit, I've egged you on to try to open them, but he has not budged.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's very tough.
Because you want to so bad just to release them from their confines. But, when it comes to the rarity...
The kid in me wants you to open them. Like, I open almost all of my figures.
So do I.
open.
So do I.
The kid in me wants to open them, play with them, put them in any sort of place I want, but the collector in me is like,
there's only a handful of figures that I leave in the packaging, and these are some of the special few. So I guess that comes just down to my final grade, and I think it'll come as no surprise that I give these an A, because they're beautiful figures. They're great additions to my or anyone else's collection. They're great figures. If you can find them, if you can find them. The price point, and you have to want it, and you have to be willing to pay for it. I think at the time that you got these was before they really
before they blew up.
They jumped up in price.
I searched a very long time to get a good price on these figures, because I did buy. Now that I think about it, I bought all these for you.
Yeah.
And I searched for a fairly long time, and they got up there. There was, I think the most expensive one was the White Lantern Hal.
Yeah.
And he was I'm not going to divulge, but he was pricey.
I'm sure.
It was pricey at the time.
Yeah.
But I guess that wraps it up for today.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope that we at least gave you some insight into some of our favorite figures, and hopefully maybe make a decision.
Something to drool over.
Make a decision if you've been on the fence about any figure as of late. But we thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and we will see you next time.